Hello, I'm Charles Bennett, and this is an introduction to one of the songs in the Lightwaves song cycle that I collaborated on with Bob Chilcott. And the song that I want to reflect on here, and there's a bit of a joke when I say reflect on, because that's associated with light. One of the songs that I want to reflect on here is the song Telescope. And the reason that I say reflect on is that optical telescopes depend on the quality of their mirror. So, in fact, what we see when we look at the sky through an optical telescope, particularly a really brilliant telescope, is actually something reflected in a mirror. So, in a sense, looking in a mirror makes me think about seeing myself. And maybe looking at the night sky is one way of trying to see ourselves, to place ourselves within what we call the universe, and certainly, within our solar system, which is plenty big enough. So, this idea of reflecting on something is actually, of course, very much at the heart of poetry. Contemplation and reflection, thinking about something, coming perhaps not to a conclusion, but at least coming to a particular condition of understanding and presenting perhaps our own confusions or our attempted understanding of something. Well, in Telescope, I wanted to bring several elements together. And again, I've been talking about these songs as planets in a solar system. And again, I wanted to emphasize the own qualities, the qualities of this song that are entirely its own. Well, I think one of the first things that we notice when we engage with the text of Telescope is this idea of enhancement, that our vision is enhanced through the telescope, this amazing invention, really. The telescope gives us something that we wouldn't ordinarily have, what we call the naked eye. It's something that we would not normally expect. It gives us an extra dimension. And when we think, for example, about the Hubble Space Telescope, that's an astounding thing, which has extended our knowledge through extending our vision. And very often, in a lot of languages, the word for knowing is related to the word for seeing. And we do often feel that when we've seen something, we know it. Of course, the other thing we like to do is touch it, which is much more difficult when we're looking at things like the moon. But this idea of extending our vision, of enhancing our vision, I could perhaps have written microscope, or I could have written a poem where a microscope and a telescope are in conversation. But here in Telescope, I wanted to think about time and space. Time and space are things that I'm really fascinated by. And as I get older, I get more and more interested in time, as actually I have less and less of it, possibly. And therefore, it becomes more and more valuable, doesn't it? Because as a commodity, as it were, it's scarcer to me. So I wanted to think about time and space. And one of the most incredible things is how long it can take for light to reach the telescope. So, for example, the light might have been travelling towards the telescope from a distant star much longer than a human lifetime. So it might take hundreds of years for light to reach the telescope on Earth, and yet I see it just in a few minutes of my own lifetime. So partly I'm comparing the brevity of human life with the length of light traveling through space. Because it seems to us that it takes no time at all for light to travel from the window into my room and for the light to travel from this room into the camera on my computer. It seems instantaneous. And so I think it's hard for us, isn't it, to get our heads around this idea that light takes time to reach us when it comes from distant suns. And in fact, that sun might now be experiencing a very different existence to the one that we are perceiving. So we are seeing, when we look at the sky, we're looking into the past as well, time and space. So I wanted to compare those things. I wanted to bring those elements together, to unify them in the way that I've been doing in some of the other poems in this long sequence. And in terms of tone, I've been talking about tone in these songs. The tone I wanted here was one of a kind of, well, wonder. I think wonder is a vastly underrated quality in our lives, and it's something that, if we're not careful, just slips by us. Um, I think it's really important to experience wonder. This is a quality often associated with childhood. I think it's really important to take elements of our childhood into our adult life. So, this idea of wondering and of being full of wonder, that gives rise, doesn't it, to curiosity, and actually, in many ways, to scientific curiosity, which makes us send probes off to various planets. Today, for example, we've sent a rover to Mars. Recently, I was watching a program about a probe that went to Pluto and took some amazing photographs of Pluto that really revolutionized not only my ideas, but the ideas of the scientific community as a whole about that heavenly body, as it were, that thing in space. So I also wanted to bring on, as you can see here, the idea of exploration, that we might explore an idea, but actually that we might explore space and explore ourselves at the same time. That perhaps knowing about space might help us know about ourselves. And that's definitely true, because the elements that go to make up human beings in a kind of biological sense, those atoms we see in stars, in meteorites, the things that make Earth actually make the universe. It's not as though there's anything separate about it. Hydrogen, for example, oxygen, the water, these, in a way, simple formulations, H2Os, reasonably simple formulation, then go on. They can be combined into making much more complex, interesting sugars, for example, or carbon. So we are made from the same components as the rest of our universe. And in one sense, we are made from stars. So that's a really fascinating way of seeing a connection between the human body and what we see through a telescope. I also wanted to think about the sky as a kind of mind, perhaps a dreaming mind. The darkness of the sky was like the darkness of the human mind at night, and the stars were, as it were, dream episodes in the mind of the sky. So all of those things came together with a sense of scale, the enormity of our universe and of other universes, and the smallness of our life on this planet, the smallness of the individual. And I wanted to bring all those things together somehow in this poem, which I'm going to read to you now. I'll start with the chorus. The chorus is simply a list of single words, but again, you'll see how they're related in little pairs. So they're short, sharp words, each with a full stop after them, but they're related as well. Distant, close, fast, slow, near, far, then, now, soon, late, dim, bright, young, old, starlight. Here is light from a distant star, come to be where you are. How far it travelled, what it passed, do not matter. It's arrived at last. Light from a star, distilled by time, enters your eye, excites your mind. Imagine stars as thoughts that pass in the mind of night while eons flash. Bright for a moment, here you are, filled with wonder from a star. Thank you very much.